Welcome to the U.S. Census Bureau's Statistics in Schools podcast. I'm Michael Livingston, a public affairs specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Kimberley Glascoe, a marketing specialist in the Statistics in Schools branch, and Kaile Bauer, chief of the Integrated Partnerships and Communications branch. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to be here.
So today we're going to talk about the upcoming 2020 census and why it's important for schools and educators to get involved. To start off, Kaile, can you explain to our listeners how responses to the census impact school funding?
The main goal of the census is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place, including children and babies. When we do this, we get an accurate count of how many people live in each state and locality. And where there are more people, there are more needs. Your census responses drive decisions about how more than $675 billion in federal funds are distributed every year, including funds for education programs such as Title I, special education, teacher training, technology, school lunch assistance, and after-school programs.
Can you provide a real example of how an educational program was funded through the use of census data?
The decennial census data is used to inform the distribution of billions of dollars in federal funding for multiple programs that support students and families across the United States. One specific example of this is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Census data is used for informing funding for SNAP, which delivers nutrition assistance to low-income children. It forms a critical foundation for the health and well-being of America's children.
Kimberley, being that you work in the Statistics in Schools program, can you tell our listeners a little more about it and how it can help to drive that message home to adults in the household who will be filling out the census in 2020?
Sure. The Statistics in Schools program is a free educational program created by the U.S. Census Bureau that uses census data to create engaging classroom activities for students. These free online resources are made by teachers for teachers, and they can be easily integrated into classroom instruction. I think one of the coolest things about our program and the census in general is that the Census Bureau has had some type of outreach to the educational community since at least the 1950 census. Our program provided educators with materials to teach children in grades K through 12 about the census in order to involve them in communicating the message about the importance of the census to their families. After the 2010 census, we worked to turn our educational program into an ongoing program to be a consistent and reliable source of information for the educational community.
Kimberley, you mentioned that the resources can be integrated into classroom instruction. Are there any specific resources that teachers can use to teach their students about the 2020 census?
Yes. We're really passionate about what our program has to offer because we understand the importance of filling out the census. Our 2020 specific materials all highlight why it's so important that everyone be counted in the 2020 census, and they range from pre-K through grade 12. By educating children about the importance of being counted, we empower them to share that message with an adult in their home who will complete the census. Think about it like this. By the next census, children who are in kindergarten right now will be in high school. This is a once-in-a-decade chance to help make sure they have what they need to be successful.
Kaile, I want to dive a little deeper with you on this. Why is it important to ensure an adequate count of children specifically?
Just as Kimberly said, making sure all children are counted is especially important to the future of education. Newborn babies and other children under the age of 5 are among the most likely to be missed in the count. If you think about it, children in kindergarten right now will be in high school when the next census rolls around. That's basically a whole childhood. If all children are not counted, important decisions are affected, such as how much money to spend on services and programs that affect children and families. By participating in and supporting the Statistics in Schools program, you can help increase awareness of the 2020 census in your community to help ensure a complete count of all children.
Some of our listeners may not know much about the census, or it may be their first time filling one out for themselves and their families. Kaile, can you walk us through what happens after someone fills out the census form?
Of course. Once the data is collected, we will tabulate the individual responses and aggregate that information by where people live, for example, census tract, or neighborhood, city and town, and states, among others. This data will show how the nation has changed over the last decade. We will release the first results from the 2020 census by December 31st, 2020 to the President. These results will include the population totals for the nation and each of the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. By March 31st of 2021, we will release local counts for each state. According to Public Law 94-171, that release includes the data states need to redraw or redistrict their legislative boundaries. It includes data on multiple geographies within the state, such as census blocks, tracts, voting districts, cities, counties, and even school districts. Then we will release more detailed state and local data through 2023. We will release these results on a new user-oriented web platform featuring easier search, visualizations, and navigation.
Kimberley, how can we help school leaders get more involved and become advocates for their schools to help get the word out to parents so that they will fill out the form?
By using and promoting the SIS program, school leaders can prepare their students for a data-driven world, empower their teachers to easily strengthen their existing lesson plans, impact the amount of federal funding received by schools in their communities, and of course, motivate households to complete the 2020 census questionnaire.
Wow, we've covered a lot in a short amount of time. So before we go, I have one last question for you both. For listeners who are just hearing about the Statistics in Schools program and maybe even the 2020 census for the first time, what would be your one takeaway you'd like to leave them with? Kaile, I'll start with you.
The 2020 census is important, easy, and safe. It is your once-in-a-decade chance to shape the future of your community. So I urge everyone to be on the lookout for your invitation to participate in mid-March.
Resources from the Statistics in Schools program can be used to educate teachers, students, and families in communities all over about the 2020 census. You can help us spread the word by using and encouraging other educators in your network to use them today at www.census.gov/schools.
Again, thank you both so much for joining me today. For all of you who are listening, remember the 2020 census is coming up in just a few short months. If you want to learn more about how you can get involved to help shape the future of your students and your community, visit 2020census.gov and census.gov/schools for free resources. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Livingston. Thank you for listening.